Joining me here with Steve Peterson. I'm going to do a quick little screen share here. Nothing too exciting. Let's see if I can. Yeah. Boom. So let's present this. So welcome. This is the Kotlin Twin Cities group I've been running since 2017. I don't have much in the way of announcements. We're going to be attempting our first hybrid event sometime in the next 3 months or so keep an eye out for that. That means we're going to have some people in person, and we're going to have a live stream as well, and recorded. Let's see. Of course, I'm always looking for speakers. So if you're looking at working on any cool topics you think other people might be interested in, related in any way to Kotlin, even a bit meta, I'd be interested in hearing about it. Also, Jetpack Compose for Android is now stable, and I'm sure you'll hear more about that from Steve tonight. I think that was a few weeks ago, so it's very exciting now. A lot of materials coming out, and it's very cool. So we have an event survey. We'd love if you would fill it out. There's a bit.ly link right there. You could type into your browser. If you do it within a certain period before the end of the event, then we might win door prizes. So check that out. The door prizes we're giving out today are 1 year free JetBrains subscriptions. So it's good for all those really great IDEs that they make. There's one that you haven't tried, like AppCode or IntelliJ Ultimate, that might benefit you. Check it out. Fill out a survey and tell us what you think about our events. Yeah, and I'm going to turn it over at this point to Steve Peterson here. Let's see.
Hi. How's everyone doing? I hope the past year has been treating you okay, both physically and mentally with COVID. So I am going to share my screen. Oh, screen 1, screen 2, choices. I think I am going to do screen 1. Let's see what that does. Unable to share the screen.
Uh-oh. Maybe I have to give an extra window. Try again. Oh, I have to unmaximize you. That's it. There we go. That might do it.
Nope. Please update system permissions to allow screen recording for the browser. We should have gone through this before, Colin. So,
I'm glad I tested.
Somebody talk about something for a while, Colin, and I'll get this worked out, I hope.
Absolutely, Yeah, we're actually starting to use Jetpack Compose at work. It's very exciting. There's a lot of new material, a lot of new tutorials coming out from Google. We found a whole sequence that Google recommends of code labs and videos and articles, and I can pull it up here, and maybe even put the link up. I wonder. I can just drop into the channel and chat. Hi, folks. See everyone in chat. So that link I just threw in the channel, that's actually Google's newest course pathway, which is just I think it's how many? 13, 14. It's 14 different Code Labs videos and articles you can read and go through to get proficient in Compose.
So Colin, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to update. It says, please update system preferences. Is that a Mac thing or a browser thing?
I think that's a Mac thing. I think what it's saying is that you haven't given permissions to your browser for screen recording.
Okay, who is the Mac expert here? So
let's see. Just looking at permissions. Probably under security. Sorry, folks.
All right. Sorry about this too.
Let's see. So, so if you go to security and privacy, in the settings, and then click on privacy and then screen recording, and you have to hit the lock icon and type your root password, and then you can give permissions to your browsers to screen record. That's the way to do it.
Okay, so I'm in here now, privacy, and then there's
screen recording on the left.
Screen recording.
And make sure your browser is checked.
my browser was not checked, so.
Boom.
Till it is quit. You're kidding. I have to leave and come back, I guess. So
It's okay.
I will, I'll do that. So
We'll be here.
Right back.
Cool. Hey, folks. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but these things happen. Yeah, I'm very excited about the Jetpack Compose. I love the declarative nature of it. That when you can basically let every single composable function, like you can pass in static parameters, and that way you can check and see with the preview what each one will look like in each state, and you can kind of like watch them live as you're altering the code as it fixes things. And it's very cool to work with it that way. Like I said, I'm sure Steve is going to tell us a lot more. So, by the way, if you're watching online on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, you can chat with us in the channel. It's the chat, live chat. Yeah, we got Steve back. There you go.
Hey, welcome back. Or welcome me back. So, I'm gonna try sharing one more time. Hopefully, this.
There we go.
Yeah, I think I'm sharing. So,
check it out.
Let's see. I'm backwards. So, isn't life great like so? So if I do this like that, and wants to do it to my big screen. Really, folks, I am technically competent, just not with screen sharing, I guess. So,
oops.
Let me try.
Okay, turn that on. There we go. Oh, we got tall mirrors effect. Love it. There we go.
Can you see that okay?
Yeah, we're seeing it.
This is what I'm talking about today. Yeah, I'm going to try to keep the hype out of it, but just for those of you that are Android developers, or even if you're not, this is an alternative to developing apps with the traditional views, we'll call it, with usually XML. So as I said, I'm kind of orienting this towards Android developers who know Kotlin and Android Studio, but if you happen to not be in that, sweet spot, I think you'll still be able to follow along. So I have to talk about my dog Fresca, because during the pandemic, she's been underfoot most of the time, and she's my favorite reviewer. Usually when I run something by her, if she moans, then it's like, okay, I need to look at that. And so when I was going over this presentation, she was underfoot and she was actually snoring quite loudly. So I'm hoping that's not a bad sign. So Compose, that's the framework. We use Composables, and Compose is a very overloaded term, but it describes the initial rendering of the view. So we'll talk about other things with that. So instead of Preamble, let's jump into some code. So we'll get over here, make this bigger so it screen up. So let's look.
It is a little hard to see. You should hit like a view and then the second thing, and then you can do enter presentation mode.
Oh, okay, well, it should be showing Android Studio now.
Okay.
Is it, or?
It is actually showing Android Studio.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm going to spend most of my time in Android Studio. So this is a new Android Studio. I'm using Arctic Cat, the latest version, give or take. And a couple of things you'll notice is every Kotlin source file now has a, they call it a Kotlin previewer. So it's very similar to what we had with the old-fashioned views, something like this with XML. but now you get that in every Kotlin source file, whether you're using it or not. So as you can see here, let me take this away for a second. So we have the annotation composable, and later I'll go in what you have to do to set your project up. But for this one that I'm showing tonight, basically I went to File, New, New Project, and Empty Composable Activity. So this is what it's showing on the right here. Like I said, it's a Kotlin preview, and it's pretty good at suggesting things. It's saying use a Compose preview. We have to add the annotation for preview, like so. And then it's not quite as fast with regenerating it, but it's not too bad as with the XML views. But this is the infamous Hello Kotlin Minneapolis. So just a very simple text view. Other thing that we can do, let's move this preview down to the second one here. Put it on here, and it, you know, we'd like to reuse it, so we're passing parameters in. But one of the restrictions is for preview, you can't have any parameters. So we'll move this up here. What I've done here, this is the starting. This is basically equivalent to a custom view, but it's a Kotlin function. Everything I'm going to talk to you tonight about is written in Kotlin. So things like this, which are, you know, with the previewer, Kotlin previewer, it's good for playing around with it, or if you happen to be in a big enough shop where there's, you know, like designer, you have a dedicated designer, and a lot of them are interested in Android programming or, you know, iOS Swift developing. This would be a great way for the UX UI developer to play around with it. So do that, and we see it there. That's the same thing. So that's as simple as you can get in Kotlin. So we have a composable, and like I said, this isn't tied to anything, so it's just freestanding. So you know, we'll tie it into the real world later. Okay, so here, you know, you could probably see this one coming. If you want to do this is equivalent of a vertical linear layout. You do something like that. Yeah.
We're getting a lot of people asking for you to increase the font size.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see.
I don't know if you can see the preview window if you go to presentation mode, but I'm pretty sure you can increase the font size from, what is it, settings, editor, colors and fonts. Yeah, editor, colors and fonts. Try that. Where'd they put it now? Looking at an old Stack Overflow post. It's like editor font. Editor font is the one you want.
Yep. Okay. I apologize for that. So,
there we go.
Is that big enough?
I think so.
Let's see. How do I? There we go. Okay. Is that everyone good with that?
I think it works. Let's keep going. Cool.
Silence is golden. So this is, you know, the only thing I've changed with the previous one, you know, is I've added the column, and I think the correct term, yeah, well, there it is right there. It's column scope. So I mean container. So it's a linear layout, looks like this. And when I'm rebuilding, most of the time it'll tell us that it needs to rebuild, but you can hit this button there, or, you know, sometimes you'll get something up on the screen that will, you know, say you need to rebuild. and there's false positives and false negatives. But you know, with 1.0 version of everything with Compose, it's pretty good. So okay, so now let's add something else. Let's add an image. So same column, couple more parameters in here. Well, a lot more parameters here. So I'm kind of thinking going inside the head of the Kotlin, I mean, not the Kotlin, the Composable developers, and how do you offer flexibility but have sensible defaults and things? As we saw here, text, we just put the text, and you know, is that all you can do with text? As you can probably guess, no, there's a lot of parameters for text. So basically for Compose, there's 3 categories of parameters for a composable compose function, or at least the ones that come out of the box. There's the required ones, like for text, it's the text. Then there's optional ones, which have default parameters. And as we see here, there's this new thing called the modifier. And it kind of reminds me of the builder pattern you've seen in Java. I think in Compose, they call it the you know, modifier chaining. So it's function chaining. And modifier, it varies slightly from Compose to Compose, but it will, you know, it's, I don't know if there's one area where you can say what you use it for, but a lot of times it's for like tweaking the composable, things like that. So, and if you want to see, you know, like text, I mean, we could with this, we can do, you know, everything in Kotlin is a name parameter. Oops, what did I do wrong there? Not text, title. Oh, it is text.
It needs a quote in the beginning.
Mess that out, so you can figure out what I'm doing here. There we go. You do like that. So if you want to see, you know, the documentation for it, it's built into Android Studio, and probably you can't read the small one, but this gives you an idea of the versatility of text. And like I said, text is literally text. I'm pointing at the screen. You can't see me doing that, but that is the only one that's required, and everything else is an optional parameter. And so, you know, that's how they do it. So you don't have this shopping list of you know, 20 parameters, although there's a lot of things for customizing the text. So let's go back to here. This, of course, is similar to, I would say, you know, with an Android XML view, this is the source. So, I mean, this is drawing it from my drawable, pulling it from the drawable directory. Okay, so let's move upward and onward. One thing that's cool about this, I mean, look at the slight difference with the last one. We have clip in there, so no getting into anything in XML land. If you want it round, you just say clip and you'll give it the category. So same as before. Let's compare that to 3. You know, usual rectangular version of the image, and then there's the clip one for a circular delivery. Okay. So here I just add some more parameters for text. You know, as you can see, there's the ones here, and I'm not going to talk about themes, which are super easy in Compose, but that's, you know, that's just some of the customization you can do. So if this was like in a probably a real project, you would do all these in a theme. So that would get this pretty compact. So even if you're not familiar with Compose, I think at this point you can, you know, see visually what's going on. And I think this is probably a lot easier to read than, or it's less verbose than XML. But so how are things going now? Colin, I think you're going to keep me in line if anybody has posted anything in the comments. So
yeah, people are saying pretty cool. Yeah, they're giving me thumbs up.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, it's really weird not getting feedback from people, but I'll assume you're there, and the voice of Colin, who's sort of like God coming over the speaker, will keep me in line. So far so good. So I mean, this is really easy to use, and you'll notice this is kind of cool. Where in our layouts we'd say 120 DP, or actually we'd have a dimension. You never put literals in your XML, but although it isn't overloading, that's basically what they're doing. It's like a DP as an operator on an integer type, so. Okay, moving upward and onward. So this is, it's great pulling an image from, the drawable directory, but that's not the real world. I mean, you get it, from a remote source, or you get it from your backend that gives you the URL of it. So this is, I pulled this from, it's a pretty cool website, for testing things, and pick some photos. I suggest you check it out. So this gives you the ID of the photo, and then you give it the X and Y dimensions, and it will give that to you. Oh yeah, the other thing about image is the content description is required. I mean, you could set this to null, which I don't think you want to do, but it is, they're really looking for accessibility. So, and again, per my caveat here, we always localize this instead of just assuming that the person uses English. So you'll notice in here that we're seeing the first two text items, but we are not seeing the image. So there's another thing here that's kind of cool. The deploy preview, and it's actually not building an APK or AABs now, but it runs in some sort of what am I trying to say, scaffolding or something, without actually having to build a binary. And for this particular one to look cool, we have to go to dark mode. Everything about dark mode is looks better, so our theme, I should say. So we're on there. Let me get rid of this. And okay, so let's launch this in the deployer here. So it's building and thinking. Okay, I'm not going to win any design awards for this, so anybody who's artistic, but as you can see, this image comes over the wire. So I think that's pretty cool. And traditionally you use Glide or Picasso, whatever. And I actually, up until a couple days ago, was using Glide. They had something called the Accompanist, kind of playing along with the composer theme. And but they actually, in effect, went out of business. That was not Glide, but Accompanist. If you look at their documentation, they're saying it's been deprecated, and they suggest they use the native renderer. So if you go in here, uses coil. I mean, that's not really, that's still an external part of Compose, but either way, it's super easy to implement. Again, compared to the last one, the only thing we did differently is, instead of using something that's hard-coded in our drawable, we're fetching it externally from using coil. Okay, so let's go into this one. I assume anybody who's an Android developer is certainly familiar with the constraint layout. And at first I remember took a little bit to figure out how to use it. I mean, it was called the relative layout on steroids or things, but now that I know it, that's kind of my go-to thing for, instead of like, I think the alternative for this would be to do a row, and then one of the elements in the row would then be a column and things like that. To me, it's actually easier to do a constraint layout. Let's blow this up a little bit. So just from a layout standpoint, excuse me, we've got the image here, and being a constraint layout, we have to constrain it in the vertical direction. So doing that to the parent with 16 dB of spacing, and the same with in the horizontal direction, we do it to the parent with the start, and then lay this, our John Hancock with, we constrain that to the top of the image with our 8 dB margin, and constrain the bottom one to the bottom of the image with an 8 dB margin, and then 16 dB either way for both of them. So most of this will look familiar, but the thing that is different, this is, constraint layout, and layouts, they have parameters and properties that we can use, like this one. And then this here, this is just the shortcut that you can do in Kotlin to do multiple assignments, the same thing. Think of these as the IDs that you would have in a traditional layout, XML layout for the views. And then when you get to the specific one, let's take the icon. We see, again, our modifier friend here, constrained. So that says this one is for the icon. And then, in Kotlin, instead of an XML layout, here's the top and the start. So I think this reads really easily, even if you're not familiar with it. So the top part, it says we're going to align that with the parent top with 16 dB. That's this guy there. And then the start one, that's this person there. And then the same as I described with the text, that you're aligning that, constraining it to the top of this, of the image, and or the icon, I call it in here. Same with the start, with the respective margins. So I think that's all very straightforward, and this is kind of my go-to layout that I would use, like in a what traditionally would be a recycler view, something like that. So, okay, let's go to this one. This is probably my favorite one, and if you somewhere on the interweb, Chet Haas, who I'm sure you're familiar with, he does bantering back and forth. He's a stand-up comic wannabe. Actually, he is a stand-up comic too, but he injects that in, the work he's doing now with the overviews of different Android technologies. So what's going on here? Most of this is just, I have a list of images that you see on the left here, and then lazy column, that's you saw the column before. The lazy part means it's scrollable, and it's basically a recycler view. So if you look at this here, that is basically a recycler view with no adapters, no holder pattern or things like that. So I've been doing Android for a while, and I would guess in my Android lifetime, I've maybe done 50 or 100 recycler views. I can do that in my sleep. I kind of wear that as an Android badge of honor, but guess what? This is so much simpler. And like I say, there's no adapter, there's no holder pattern. It's just it's so easy. And so the lazy column is like the recycler view. This is a new one too. So that's related to the lazy column or lazy rows. So this is the I would call it the collection. We're working on the images, and I'm using the items indexed here, although I don't reference index anywhere. But if you put like a click handler or something in there, you'd probably want to return that, and then you can correlate that to your data item. But we're doing this is pretty much the same thing we saw before. So where does it get the image? Our accessibility description, and height and width. So let's go over to our previewer here, and one thing you'll notice, it's not moving, and this is definitely it should be. So this is a little too much for the previewer. We saw that before when we were asking it to go over the wire, and this particular one sort of renders, but and given the great work the Android Studio team is doing, I'm sure someday soon you'll be able to do it in the previewer. But not to worry, we can do our deployer. So we have the previewer and the deployer. So we'll wait for that to build. Okay, so this is going to probably be really jerky over the conferencing software, but in basically 10 lines of code, we've created this app, or at least the meat of it. So again, no hype, but I personally think this is really cool. So okay, moving onward. Oh shoot, I didn't fill that one out. My bad. You know what?
We do.
What's that?
We do have a couple of questions if you want to try answering those. One of the first ones, James Ryan here is saying, will we have access to the slides in code?
Definitely. I'll rely on you for that, Colin, but yeah, I can put the the code up there, and my slides, which are probably secondly nature. But let's see. Colin, talk about something for a couple minutes. I'm gonna see if I can.
Okay, you probably had a version of it probably somewhere with the code intact, I bet. There was another question here, which was, does Compose offer built-in support for animations as well as image loading? So you get animations as well.
What was the other thing besides animations?
Well, you said there's image loading from Coil. She's asking, does it also provide support for animations?
Oh, yes, there is. I won't be showing that tonight, but those are really cool and really easy. So on our particular project, my coworker John, and Gracian too, I think you're out there, he actually did the exploration for animations. But yeah, they're really cool and really easy. So I think you're probably, hopefully by the end of this talk, you're armed with the information so you can go out there and get it. But they've gotten a lot easier with the traditional view method, but I mean, they're super easy with Compose. So
there's actually a Compose animation code lab, so I just put that into chat. So
Okay, thank you. So, I apologize again for this, leaving this out, but this last one actually I think is kind of important. So bear with me for a couple minutes. Here, I'll look at the backup, see what I did with, see if I stored that there. I probably didn't actually. This is where IntelliJ Android Studio saves my butt. So I think we're going to be in business here.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Android Studio keeps a local history cache, so you can actually revert your changes without even using code source control.
Yeah,
which is nice. Won't lie, it has saved my bacon once or twice for sure.
Oh, okay. I did think, I actually realized that I wanted to run the debugger with what I was going to show, so I pulled it out of the, you know, a sample one and put it into the application that I'll run. So again, if I practice more, maybe my dog was moaning at this or something, and I wasn't paying attention to this part. But let's look at the main activity here. Okay, so here we go. Notice this, you know, great code switching technique I'm using here. But so we'll build this and get it going. So okay, so one of the concepts of Compose is a very important one, and I'll show the slides for that. Well, let me do that right now. So this is lifted. I think it's actually from a develop Android, you know, from Google with it. In this image that I show here, the man on the soapbox, that's again my anybody that's worked with me knows I do this every now and then, and this is one of them. So this was, I think, probably from a couple of years ago, showing, you know, the architecture using the various Jetpack composes. But here's where I'm getting up on my sandbox is like, you know, we'll do MVVM or, you know, whatever, but it has a view component and it just says activity and fragment. And one thing I've been on a mission to do is get, you know, the activities and fragments down to like a fraction of what it is. And I've been guilty of writing the or at least participating in it, writing the multi-thousand line activity, or, you know, now we're breaking off into fragments. And so Compose makes it really simple. And what I love about Compose and using with other Jetpack architectures is, you know, you could do a block diagram of what's responsible for what. So I kind of make fun of it with a single responsibility that a Kotlin, Jetpack Composable really only does two things, and you want to make sure it doesn't do anything. Or you've got unidirectional data flow. We've been showing the components where you can't see me gesturing over it, and I don't think I can highlight on there, but the data going down, that's what we've been showing. You know, you give it data, and I talked about composing. That means the first time you, I would call it, you know, reconcile it or render it in the view. The other part, of course, is events, because you click on things You even saw my example so far. We, tried entering some text on, what's a traditionally known as a edit text field in traditional views, and nothing happens, and so it's like, okay, if Compose is supposed to be so great, why isn't it working? Well, again, it's that simplicity. I mean, it just knows how to render data that it does, and then field events and pass that, delegate upward. And, so you have to add some more logic to this. So let's go back to our code here. This is what we did. We have a column of one, so that's not super useful, but we have an outline text field. That's the edit text equivalent. And we're giving an initial value of nothing. And we've got, this is the handler that when you type on something, it will execute the, the lambda that we're passing in, do it. So we're not doing anything right now when you type into it. So we're going to go to the second version here, hello content. This is the working one, and run that and see what happens. Nice pictures while we're waiting for it. That's Bean or Cloudscape in Chicago. I took that picture. The other ones came from a third-party website that said I could share it. So, oh, you know what? This is black on black, so that's not going to look very good. Ah, much better. Okay, so this one has the outline text field. Do focus, and did I rebuild that? And folks, so. Oh, content.
You're good. No worries. I guess we're waiting for it to build. We do have a question. It says, can composables have child composables, and would that be considered a good or bad practice? Well, in this case, yes, I think you can already see.
I actually have a bad humor term for that. It's called decomposing, and that's actually, in the software sense, yes, that's an excellent practice. It's so easy, we've said custom views, and custom views, if you're, I don't know how many people actually do that, probably bigger shops do, or if you're going to get reuse, but a composable it's a Kotlin function, it's that simple. And I think it really helps readability. Like anytime you do a indentation, like I was showing with the lazy column, you have the thing that goes in there. I would make that, child composable, to use that term. So it's, I think that's a great practice. And if anybody else out there uses, Compose, I'd be curious what they think. But, it just, I think, improves the readability, and interface is so clean. It's again, defined by your parameters. I mean, it goes into which are the the data and that comes out of, and that's the the callbacks and the events. So I am not figuring out why my sample didn't work. It's like it's calling the wrong one. But this is one of these tap dancing things. If I was, if this did work, what it would do. But so basically, this actually shows what the question that you asked about the child composables. I'm doing exactly that. So I've got a column here, and then I'm calling the child composable. But one thing that is new, and this is one of these, I'm not sure you're going to grasp this tonight, or if I'm actually going to explain it accurately for you to do that. But this is the thing, one of the important concepts to master and say, aha, I know how to do that now in Kotlin is the state, and again, my Android cohorts, I'm always saying state is bad. Well, you need state somewhere, but state can lead to side effects, and some side effects are good, but like true functional programming, you don't have any side effects, and it's really easy to test. But one area, like I mentioned with this example, is if you have a text field, which is a edit text in XML view lingo, you don't get that short circuit where the component has state. In Compose, by design your composed elements are dumb is probably not the right term, but they are very specific for things. They know how to do those things, so you have to rely elsewhere. But one of the things that I've been using quite a bit is this construct of remember, which is a term, and it does just that. When you do recompose, which is the fancy term, when you compose it besides the initial time, it will remember that state. Like in the previous one where we were getting an image over the wire, it had remember something. Let's see, is that 5? Yeah, remember image painter. So there's a whole family of remember functions, but basically with remember by itself or ones like this, it's caching the information. So when you render it a second time, and that's called recomposure, it will keep the value that it used initially. So that's for performance. You could not remember that and do another over the wire fetch, but it's small things like that that really make Compose, I think, a lot more performant and just easier to use. So let's go back to our main activity here, and this is with mutable state of. I was talking offline with Colin a little bit before this. Again, if you're an Android developer, and I assume you're using live data or some, with you do your repositories, your view model. In your view model, you for simpler cases, you do live data, which is part of Jetpack Compose. Other shops, Arx Java, which has been around for a long time, Compose has support for that, but that's a similar, I think more verbose, but you can do anything in Arx Java. That's just a way of processing. And then there's, of course, flows. Talking to Kotlin, where he works, they're all into flows, but where I am in a lot of companies use live data, and mutable state of looks a lot like live data. It doesn't have a post value, but something where you usually set the value in like a view model, and then you read it elsewhere, with an observable. That's very common and very understandable pattern.
Okay.
So what I am going to try, yes.
Since you bring it up, state flows or flows and lab data and ArcJava all have extension functions in Compose that will convert them into state. So you can say, take this flow of collected as state, and you can pass it down to your child composables.
Yep. Thank you for that clarification. I'm going to try this last example that I have, and hopefully that will work. I'm just going to blow these away because we're trying to go to the good stuff. See, that's a sign of concise code when you can fit it all on one screen when it's in the super large font. But so first of all, I'm going to see if this actually works. So then that'd be helpful. So I'm doing a rebuild. And that is actually supposed to delay like that. So it works. Cool. Well, I'm going to do two things here because, like I said before, everything looks better in dark mode. So we'll go back to dark theme, I should say. So you're probably thinking we just saw this like a couple samples ago, except it was much faster. Well, what you saw before was where we had the images in the drawable resource directory, which is not where things come from. The probably 98% of the time the data comes over the wire. We use retrofit. I don't know if volley is still a thing for people. So the one example that I'm going to go over now is, assume I'm not actually going over the wire, but I'm getting the information from the view model. So this is like really, really a common architectural pattern. So let's image view model. So I'm simulating, it's a repository call that would use retrofit. So just this one here, assume, in the real world, what it's doing is it's actually going over the wire and it's fetching the images. So just to make a point, I give it a 5-second delay. And like my comment says, if it takes 5 seconds for you to make that call, there's sweat guns. Okay, sorry there. There we go. And there, so we call this, and this is using coroutines, of course, and we're in a view model. So view model scope, this tells it to run in the background. So it's going to delay 5 seconds, and then it's going to update this value. And what this value is, it's a mutable state. And I absolutely love this, and you'll see in a second. So it looks almost identical to live data, but it's mutable in a coroutine, and nothing up my sleeves. But this, I hope you're as excited as I am, and I'll going to run this with the debugger. So okay, so we set a breakpoint there, and then let's set one in the view model. We have one there. So I'll start this with the debugger. So I start the app, and then initially it's going to go in. This is when it's composing. So notice we have 0 size. So it's just going to display a blank page. But okay, so now because I hit the breakpoint before, it waited 5 seconds, and I'm going to update this mutable state here. So this looks exactly identical to an async task, but I want to show you and hopefully get excited in the this part of it in the composable. So you notice that there's no closure way observe or things like that. It's just it looks like to be just a variable, but what it's actually doing under the covers, I mean, there's a lot of interesting things going on with the meta magic and things in the compiler, but it's actually going to recompose starting at this point. And the thing about Compose and Composables in general, it seems wasteful at first, but it's super cool. Think of it in Kotlin, you've got val, so it's immutable, and it's all or nothing. So I'm guessing under the covers what it does is some sort of checksum. So it's a little hard to wrap your head around it, but I really hope that you stick with it and go through, because it's the recompose. That's where I think the magic happens. So you're basically saying, from the data provider for coroutines, something changed. It's just, like what was considered bad in recycler views, data set changed, but, to figure out exactly what it was took more work. But that's what you want in Compose, because, you give it something different, and I assume under the cover it compares the two. They're different, and what saves you a lot of work and makes Compose and Composables so efficient is that it figures out what changed. So, at the top, it seems like you're just blasting it with all this data, which, you kind of are, but under the covers with their rendering engine, they're just saying this little part did it and changed, and it will only deal with that. So, I mean, it saves us as developers, metric shit, what poop of work. So remember our last breakpoint, we're in the view model. We're just calling this, we're just saying update the value, and we'll go back to the other spot here. So now when that triggers, bam, I mean, it didn't execute. Actually, I should do that for the next time. It didn't execute there on line 40. It started on line 41, and then there it is. And there's our images that emulate getting it over the wire. And again, look at how few lines of code there is. There's like 10 lines of useful code in this case, I'm doing an activity, but in the real world, that would be a fragment or somewhere else. So, I mean, it's just, maybe you're not as amazed as I am, but I think this is like really cool. And not that observables were, too verbose or anything, but they're like seriously cheating to do that under the covers somehow. So actually, I'm going to run that again with the breakpoints. So first time it hits there, since I do have a breakpoint, let me go to the view model here. Let's make this 10 seconds. I think that'll demonstrate a little better. So in the composable, we hit there. We go there, empty set, so it's just going to display nothing. So, and then we hit the breakpoint, simulating the retrofit call. and bam, it goes in there. So I mean, it's just, to me, it's magic, almost magic that it does that. Well, anyways, that's a hype that I promised I wouldn't do. So so that's it for the code, but I'm going to go back to here. So we showed that slide before. Data hoisting, that is basically, like we said, making your composables simple. I'll use that instead of done. And here is the definition that Google gives with the Android developer. And I think it's pretty clear, but the point they make, in their overviews with the notes, they spend a lot of times with caveats that you don't necessarily, in your parameters for your composable, you have the data going in, those are the values, and then the on value change, the events coming out. So you can have, like in some of our composables, we might have like 6 parameters with 4 data items in and 2 events out. You might have scrollable or click or something like that. But data hoisting is just a fancy name of saying get the logic that contains the state up as far as possible. And the remember and then mutable state of together, you'll see that often. And then to me, I think, give or take, that's only state that I would actually have in a composable. And sometimes that's good, because like when you type a letter, you really don't want the user experience to wait until you get something back from the database or over the wire. So I think for the the state of things like switches or the text fields, it's acceptable to do that. And remember is the way to do it. Okay, so like I said, full disclosure, I made this term up, but it's something we've done with our Compose code. And this Compose, a lot of, like, you could have the template languages with web stuff, and I just don't like when there's too much decision logic in the view, or in this case, the composable. So I think it really makes it clear, simplifies your logic. Your composable, it just renders, but try to at least minimize the if and when statements, decision logic in your composable. And so move this up a level, either the view model, or I'm a big fan of Kotlin extension functions for doing that. Specifically, the next time or the third line, I'm talking about where you use one of the Kotlin collection library functions. Map to is my favorite one, where you're transforming from one data type to the next, and you would do that because you're getting data from the endpoint, and chances are that's either in a format that you don't use, or you have to collect things, which Colin would probably say that's where you would use flows or things like that if it's numerous endpoints. But then you can transform it to just the data that you need for your view or your composable. And then the other thing is, it is possible there is a test framework, like an Espresso type framework for Compose. I haven't used it, and I'm not even sure if we will use that. But what I like about this approach is, in just data hoisting in general, you move this logic up a level, and my case, or what we do, it's an extension function. Those are super easy to test with, like JUnit. You don't need mock K or anything like that, or anything involving view models. So this is some actual code. I don't think this is the family jewels of Bleachr, but we've got trending broadcast, which is the type that we get from the endpoint, and then we convert it to trending broadcast screen model. And this is data specifically that the Composable uses, and only that. And it doesn't have a whole lot of decision logic in it, but there is some. In this particular, this was my first use of a composable, and it was it was a doozy. The business requirements of it, I'll see if I can dig up a screenshot or something or a video of it, but it's not a lazy column. It's actually a grid, and so that was, very similar. Just change the outer compose from a lazy column to a lazy vertical grid, and you specify the number of columns you want, in our case 2, and we look at the data, and it's broadcast, which is what our Bleachr app does, and it will, if it adds a video, it'll show it in there. So I actually made a composable that uses ExoPlayer in it, and if it doesn't have a video, then it shows the icon or emoji for the person who is the organizer for that. And if it doesn't have that, then it's all these decisions. And if you start scrolling any of the panes with the video, then that reverts to just the emoji. So it's like it's not real simple. It's all this, well, if it's this and this, but this, then do that. And all that logic got pushed up a level out of Compose, and it was, really easy to unit test with that. So anyways,
Steve,
yes.
I should say we're about 5 minutes over the hour. We should probably start looking at questions and yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How many slides do you have left?
I'll go through it. Is Compose ready for prime time? Yes, like Colin said, 1.0. It's ready to go. The other things I was talking about, we jumped on when it went to beta. The library was stable, but Android Studio was not ready for prime time. Probably a good thing I didn't cover these topics, but downloadable fonts, we use them. It's super easy. Themes, super easy again. Dark theme, you can query and do things like that, but you'll probably want your themes to take care of it. Pagination is straightforward. I'm thinking it still could be a little bit simpler. And I talked about the typing. So if you want to jump in with Compose, I kind of broke this into 2 categories. If you just want to play with it, do like I did, create it, get the latest copy of Android Studio and just do a new project and select empty Compose activity. And then, optionally look in the build.gradle, and it will, Android Studio will flag any of the libraries that need updates. This is what we did because, we have a very mature project and wanted to incrementally add Compose to it. So basically still create a new project off the side and use that as like reference for the latest versions of the libraries. But you do have to make sure with a lot of stuff, the latest version of the Kotlin compiler and Gradle and, a lot of the libraries, a lot of the core libraries, even though they're not Compose specific, have to be the recent version. So like what we did, we, regression tested all our code with just updating that without adding the Compose things. So there's examples, and here's the interop, a really excellent page that talks about you can call your Compose from your XML views. You can call your existing XML views from your Compose, or what we did is, and you can do it for an activity fragment or view, is to it has something called set content, not set context, which is what my Android mouth wants to say, and that's specifically for Kotlin. And then you put your composable in there, and this is from an actual code. And again, with the, the first two are the data going in, and then the last two are the events coming out. So you talked about that. Caveat, if you're, and I encourage you to browse the internet and see what's out there, but realize that most of the GitHub projects or Medium articles are based on previous versions, beta versions or whatever, and chances are they're going to be wrong and they won't build, although the newest version of Android Studio will try to help you for that. So watch your imports. I got burned by this too, because when you have things like buttons and, composable and things, not composable, but the constraint layout, there's a constraint layout for Compose, and then there's the version for the XML view, and it took me more time than I'd like to admit that I was using the wrong one and couldn't figure out why it worked. So let's see. Too much information on that. I think I recommend starting with the Google website, but be aware, two things with that is even their stuff, is not necessarily 100% up to date. And sometimes they just throw out, it's like they, like here's state and compose, and we're short for time, but you can see it's very verbose. And so what I call that is, if you want to teach somebody to change a tire, don't give the history of rubber. So very smart people, and that would be a spot, but just you may want to, if there's a concept that you don't quite get it, you may want to look elsewhere. And in this particular case, Stack Overflow, look how recent it is, but this person, I think, concisely summarized things that in a lot fewer words than the Android article. I love this guy. Never in an Android learning sort of sense. I never heard of him before, but he's got a lot of great content on there, and he's also the world's fastest typer. So, I suggest you check it out. And he spends all of his time in Android Studio, types it in, and so and he does have paid content, which I haven't looked at. And what used to be my go-to spot, Ray Wenderlich, they've gotten pricey. I think currently I have like a $40 per year or something, maybe even $60 per year. They have great content. They have great authors and things, but now they raise their rates. And so I'm grandfathered in, and so there's articles I'll start reading. It's like, oh, this is really great stuff. And then all of a sudden it turns to Latin and said, oh, if you upgrade to the professional view, you can see the rest of it. So, good luck with that model. But, for me, I'm not going to pay for that out of my own pocket. And I'm pretty sure my employer wouldn't either. But, I think if you do have the money, that would be the great way to go. Let's see. If anything else, the thinking, get that so it's clear in your head, and then the remember and mutable state of, but I hope you find it valuable to do that. And same with Java to Kotlin, you can do it incrementally, and that's it. Okay, so sorry I talked too long and all that. So ding, we're done. So I will take questions.
We do have a question here, so I'll bring this one up. Carly Neiman asks, is Compose far enough along to where it could support more complex views, such as camera X or video playback?
Hi, Carly. I used to work with her. Great Android developer. And yes, it is. You can always write your own, but I think that because it's so easy to quote unquote custom views, I think somebody else will do that sooner than later. So it's far enough along to write your own, but whether somebody else wrote it, I don't know specifically for those. But if it isn't now, it will be soon. Or if you want to take that on yourself, I think it would be a lot simpler than using traditional XML views and related classes.
I did cheat and Google this well after the question was asked. And the answer also is that there is a preview view provided by Compose for camera. So you can actually use a camera with Compose. Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Yeah, great presentation. Thanks a lot. I remind folks there is an event survey. You can, if you can type in a bit.ly link, you can take our survey and win some prizes later. Also, yeah, there's a lot of cool things with Compose, and we could go on for way more than this hour, in 15 at this point. There's so many things we want to talk about. We're going to probably do, this topic will come back another month, I'm sure. What I want to see is more stuff too, like custom modifiers are really cool. I don't know if you've played with them at all. So the modifiers, you can chain them as like ways to alter the properties of your composable. And so you could have like a view, like a text field, and you can change the size of it. You can change all these properties. One example, Brian Erbst, actually, who's in the audience, I think, did a blog about using a custom modifier to do autofill on edit texts.
Cool.
In Compose. Yeah. So there's a lot of depth, and we're going to keep digging into this. We're not stopping at just one presentation. We're going to keep going down our Compose journey. I hope you guys do too.
Yeah, Brian, it's great to have you in the audience. I'm very humbled. So I'm sure it wouldn't take much arm twisting to get you to speak on some topic with Compose, but
yeah, we'll try to bring him on for sure. Thanks, guys. Thanks for all for coming out and seeing our show.
See you later.
See you later.